Welcome to the Den. This is where we talk about the parts of IT reuse that don't get enough airtime, the messy bits, the operational realities, and the things that look simple until you actually try to do them at scale. Each episode will pick apart one real problem, what goes wrong, why it's harder than it looks, and what good actually means in practice. Hello and welcome to this latest episode of The Den. I'm here again with Adam Burrett, founder from Novafox. Hello, Adam. How you doing?
Hi, John. I'm good, thank you. How are yourself?
I'm very good, thank you. So what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about Hydra, which is Novafox's product solution for data sanitization of networking equipment. Really to see, where does it fit within the market? Is it the right fit for everybody? Is there certain customers where it does work, some maybe where it doesn't? So maybe we could sort of have a bit of a sort of delve into that and understand exactly what it is and where does it fit. Maybe to start with, Adam, in 15 seconds, what is Hydra? What does it do? Give us the lowdown.
So Hydra is a network erasure tool. It's designed to securely and safely erase networking equipment, making sure that you get a certified erasure. So it gives you certainty after by pressing one button. You just press go.
Okay.
That's the principal design.
Okay, and what is it built on? Is it a tool to speed up a process? Is it to save money? What is its main focus?
Okay, so its main focus is automation and simplification and erasure. So does it speed up the process? Not massively in terms of the time it takes. In terms of hands-on time, yes. You're looking at most 1 minute for a person to use a Hydra, and they walk away, they can go and do something else. The
Right.
actual process, the erasure process, isn't going to be quicker necessarily than someone typing in the commands manually. You're just not tying up that person to type in the commands manually. So, it's automation. It's automation and certainty, and making it so that every time that you run it through a Hydra, if you get a pass, it's perfectly safe for you to do whatever you want with that device going forwards. It's been completely safe.
Okay, so I'm guessing, maybe just backtracking a little bit. So brokers or ITADs historically, for people that don't know, what would be the pre-Hydra solution? What can you use? What tools are available? In the normal sort of ITAD environment.
So in the normal ITAD environment, really, the tools available are things like Putty and Google. So you don't know. 90% of the time, you'll get a device across your desk and you'll have to either refer back to your notes to find the commands and scripts that you have to run, or you'll be researching it on a case-by-case basis to find out what it is that you need to do. And you'll just be running commands one by one, typing in commands in a keyboard or copying and pasting a script. Both of those techniques work to do a factory reset, because the other catch is, if you do the commands and you run the way that Hydra works, you're going to end up bricking your device. Part of what we do is making sure that doesn't happen. Run an erase command on a device, there's no OS left. If you haven't done the steps in ahead of that, you'll end up with a brick device. Or worse, you can recover an OS, you can't recover the license. Imagine bricking a device because you've taken the license off and then suddenly the device is worthless. So
Okay.
Historically, that's where the commands are. You're just running commands into a Hydra, typing in, waiting for the switch to respond, typing in again, waiting for the switch to respond. And all of that takes time and takes skill and effort that you need a skilled person.
So I was about to say that's very much dependent on the individual, the skill of the individual engineer, and I guess also typically you're not going to have many people within a typical ITAD with that skill set. So if they're on holiday or off or whatever, then suddenly you're going to lose that capability within your workflow.
Yeah, I mean, even large ITADs only have one, maybe two people within their team who has the relevant skills to be able to do this. They can train lower skilled techs to run the commands and execute the commands, but they wouldn't be able to understand what to happen if something doesn't quite work right. And you're risking things going wrong. Even the best engineer in the world is going to get things wrong sometimes.
We're all human.
We're all human. And because it's manual every single time, you could be running in a command, someone distracts you to ask you a question, you come back and you can't remember, did you run that command or did you not run that command? And then, so there's no certainty there. And that because there's no certainty and it's all manual, there's actually really no evidence. I mean, some of the way some companies have been doing evidence is they run a show run before they execute and then run a show run after they execute. But the show run before they do the erasure has all of the customer's config. So if they include that in an erasure report, what was the point? There's things
Right.
like that. The evidence isn't there either. And that's a key difference with Hydra is we provide a certificate. You get the evidence and the certificate at the end without disclosing what was on there originally, because we never look. We don't care. We don't
Right.
care what was there before. We only care about the end result.
Okay. So we're talking in terms of that sort of process, very manual, chance of human error, things not being done. With using that command prompt type approach, where do you stand in terms of certification with NIST or ADISA or any of those required, certainly within, say, R2v3, the need to overwrite or to sanitize? Where do you stand with that manual process?
Well, the short answer is it's not certified. It's
Right.
a manual process. You can you can have your own internal process, and you could be as part of your ADISA or your R2 audit certified against your process, but it's not an independently verified erasure process. So you can't claim to have an ADISA certified erasure. You just there's no product claims test for that. You're just typing in commands.
Right.
So no, you can't claim to be certified.
Okay. But I was thinking more from sort of a customer's point of view. If that ITAD needs to give evidence back to the end user that they've sanitized those devices as part of that workflow, when receiving assets, if they're doing that manual process, what can they prove or provide in terms of standards and certification to say, no, this is compliant?
As I say, they can't. That
Right.
they can give reports to, you could run a show run at the end of your process to say, look, this is all factory reset.
Yeah.
But that's not an erasure. That's just showing that the config's been wiped.
Okay.
I mean, or not
So I'm
even wiped,
guessing,
just deleted and started again. But in terms of an actual certification and verification that your process works and that you're giving them a certified erasure, unless you're using a product like Hydra that provides the certification and the process of Hydra has been independently verified by a third party, ADISA, you can't say it's certified because you're basically certifying yourself.
right. Yeah, no, I get that. That makes sense. And I guess, from when you are issuing those commands, you can do obviously an erase command or what have you, but is that always going to erase all the storage media within a device, or is there,
No.
again, is there a potential risk there too?
I mean, there's a huge risk. I mean, let's look at a really nice classic example, a Cisco router. Okay. We look at where we are in terms of commands. For the NVRAM, which is where your config lives, there are 4 different commands that you could potentially run that contain the word erase. Okay, so you've got write erase. All that does is deletes the config file, doesn't erase it. You've got erase NVRAM. All that also does is it's just the same command. It runs it just deletes the config file. There's a specific erase NVRAM command, which I'm not going to disclose. I mean, people who know, but there's another command which does actually absolutely erase everything.
Right.
And then you have format, which we all know, you wouldn't format a hard drive and then go, right, this is wiped and sell it on. It's exactly the same thing.
Right.
But historically, when you're looking at what people do and what people talk about, they always go, oh, well, we just run a write erase. Well, you haven't erased anything. You've just deleted some files and you've left a whole load of stuff behind. That's just the NVRAM. There's nothing on flash. Okay. So the only way to certify and securely wipe the flash is to overwrite it. And the only way to do that efficiently is automated. You can't, all the flashes are slightly different size. You can't just go, right, we're just going to do this and it will work. There's interpretation, there's modification, there's change, you change direction. So you can't do that by hand. You can do that by hand. It's not
It wouldn't be
practical.
practical though, would it? Because at the end of the day, you're then going back to that issue where you're reliant on one person with a skill set. And then every time they look at a device, they're going to be kind of starting with a clean sheet of paper to say, right, what's the size of this, flash drive? What's this? What's that?
Yeah. And I know that we can do it by hand because when we write our software to do the erasure, we verify everything by hand. That's the way we work. So it can be done by hand.
But
it
you
just
can't
takes
scale.
you can't scale it, and it
Yeah.
takes a really long time. Running that by hand will be 3 to 4 times longer than doing it automated. So it's not practical to do it
Okay.
all the
So when
time.
we go back to that labor sort of, or that manual type of action, we're talking, and this is just me kind of paraphrasing a bit, it's a case of running it through quickly, not saying cutting corners, but it's not practical to go through that full sanitization process. So really we're talking at best factory reset to make it appear like a clean unit, but not a sanitized unit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right, interesting then. So really, compliance, we're there with, that's obviously key for Hydra. Um, NIST is pretty much the default standard now, right?
NIST is the default standard. NIST R2, sorry, NIST V2, should I say,
Yeah.
has changed things quite a lot. The V1, the wording was very woolly. V2 has tightened that up quite a bit, which is great for us as a product. It's where we want the industry to start looking at and heading down.
Yeah.
Um, you know, there's still the woolliness around NIST Clear. NIST Clear still has a bit of interpretation which needs to be tightened up slightly more. NIST Purge is pretty clear as well now, which is nice. You know, Ideally you want to run a NIST Purge, but sometimes you can't. And you'll see that with Hydra. Sometimes we'll be running NIST Purge all the time. Sometimes you'll see one part of the media on NIST Purge and one part of the media on a NIST Clear, but we always specify it's an overwrite.
Right.
We don't just call it a NIST Clear, because a NIST Clear could be a factory reset with massive caveats on it. So, they say you can do a factory reset. They don't recommend
But
it.
it
I
should
think
be factory reset with an override, or
it should be factory
yeah.
reset with an override or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So you need to have a tool that can automatically switch and understand what it's doing and certify that it's done it. Because
Okay.
again, NIST needs some level of verification. How do you verify? We verify in advance, but we also we have our processes verified, and then where we can, we will verify specifically on the device. But that verification step is quite important.
Okay. No, great. That makes a lot of sense. So if customers, an ITAD or a broker wants to look at Hydra, um, when does it make sense for them to look at the technology? Do they need regular volumes? Do they have to be doing 100 switches a month? What does it look like? What does that dynamic look like?
So because of the way we've structured the Hydra product, you don't actually need to look at it in terms of volumes. You can start with a single Hydra unit, put the right equipment through it. It pays for itself within hours.
Right.
If you because the cost is at the point where, and we've deliberately done this, that the Hydra unit itself pays for itself. We're bringing a tool to the industry that the industry needs. It shouldn't be prohibitively expensive for the industry. So run 1 or 2 switches through the device, you will break even pretty much immediately, and then everything else is just extra bonus money. In terms of scaling, can you start with 1? You can take 5, 10. I mean, we've got people on 25, we've got people on 30, even, and we've got people talking to us about higher volumes. It scales with your business, and our aim is to make it that you don't, you can run 10, you can run 100, you can run 10,000 units a month, and it will all go through the Hydra, and you'll have that certainty, and you will be making money every single month that you're using your Hydras.
Right. But what we're saying is at the low end, if they're not using it day in, day out, within a calendar month, it's still cost effective to deploy it and use it,
Well,
and give the
exactly.
customer that level of comfort that they're providing a certified erasure.
Exactly. And, if you have a month where you've got lots and a month where you haven't got lots, you will find that it balances out. The months where you have loads of devices going through it, you're going to pay, for the next 2, 3, 4 months anyway, just from that single batch. We have customers who have actually covered the cost of their Hydras, multiple Hydras, for the entire year within 2 weeks.
Right. I guess
So,
it's just that getting the right kit, isn't it? And we know within networking products, there are switches out there that are, maybe a little bit older now, and they're $50, $60 or pounds. But then you can get one switch which is $3,000-$4,000 or pounds.
exactly. It does come down to the mix.
Yeah.
But even if you have the lower end cheaper switches, obviously you're charging for service and you're going to sell it on, you'll break even within a couple of days if all you've got is low volume stuff, but you have
Right.
a reasonable volume of it. But yeah, the aim is to make it so, we've tried to do this so that you have a Hydra, you've covered the cost for that Hydra really, really quickly, and you're not looking at, okay, is this Hydra still worth having month on month on month? Because you've pretty much paid for it pretty much straight away. That's kind of where we're trying to get to in terms of how we proposition that product.
Okay. But again, in the way that, as I said, networking in Erasure is kind of a bit of a new thing to the
It
market.
is.
But we're very familiar with data erasure of other products, be it laptops, mobile phones, tablets, or what have you. Do we think that the market is changing and we're going to end up treating networking products in a similar vein?
Definitely. I mean, and the market is changing. We're moving towards the world now where people see networking devices as a risk. Um, certain end users already have, banks and people like that. They've always seen them as a risk, and they're not allowed to leave unless they've been shredded. So we're seeing that mentality starting to catch up. So people are looking for a solution where they're not having to shred their devices. It's not good for the world if we keep shredding everything. It's not good for the economy if we keep shredding everything. So the world is now changing, and the risk of networking equipment has become more pronounced. Cyber has become more of a thing now. People are conscious. There's been a lot of high profile compromises over the last 12 months, 6 months, and that's not going to slow down. That's going to carry on. So yeah, people's
No,
appetite has changed, and people
no, I
want to
think so.
have their networking equipment securely wiped.
I'm pretty sure if I heard recently with R2v3. So with Appendix B, isn't it? They now say that you should treat a networking product no differently than any other data-bearing device. So we are starting, I guess, to see legislation and standards changing to confirm what.
We are. We are. I mean, R2v3, the fact that they've now introduced that into R2v3 is fantastic. ADISA was starting to push this about a year ago and saying, you need to be wiping your networking equipment. The part of we're seeing it with our customers. Part of the audits are that they're now checking how you processing your networking equipment, and people, they are raising that as a risk because
Yeah.
everyone is catching up. So the fact that R2v3 is now also putting it into Appendix B and it's there, and people are being checked on this stuff, it is the right direction. So
But
yeah, the
I think
ITAD
also for
industry is going to get through
ITADs,
that.
when they're processing servers or laptops or desktops, they're charging the customer, the end user, to process those devices. There's no reason why they shouldn't be doing the same with networking equipment. So it should be additional revenue stream, if anything, right?
Yeah, it should. And there's a mix. There's people who charge for wiping service. There's people that don't.
Right.
Um, but the people that do charge, they should be charging for processing networking equipment. And you've got to bear in mind, most networking equipment has a higher net value than laptops and desktops and some servers, not all servers, particularly servers loaded with RAM nowadays. But that's a whole other conversation. The charging for processing networking equipment will start coming through, and the ITADs have to start thinking, if they're not specifying how they are wiping Erasure or wiping networking equipment and either charging for it or not charging for it, but specifying how and why what they are doing and why they are doing it, then their competitors will be. And this is a big thing. ITAD is always looking for the edge, for the next thing. For how do they provide a better service for their customer? How do they differentiate from the other ITADs in the industry? And if the market is moving in this way, you really need to move in with the rest of the market.
I mean, how do we think it's going to look over the next 3-5 years in terms of this piece around sort of standardization? Do you think it's going to become mandatory that people do erase? Because an ITAD wouldn't dream of processing a laptop without some form of data erasure and a certificate. But at the
No,
moment, it's some switches, yes, maybe some don't. Some ITADs do, some ITADs don't.
I think we're going to see a few things happen in the industry over the next 3 to 5 years. The first one is, at the moment, it's kind of accepted that ITADs will send devices to downstream brokers
Right.
and accept or expect that they have erased them because they're the guys with the skills and they know what they're doing. I think doing that without evidence now is probably not going to happen. I think the other thing that's really going to change is that the ITADs are going to be pushed by their customers. I don't think, you know,
By the
the
end
industry,
users.
yeah, the end
Yeah.
user is going to drive this. And if you don't have a solution for it and you aren't able to provide a certified erasure, then you're potentially going to start missing out on things, and you're certainly going to have a risk when it comes to, sanitization. Part of this is all about reputation. You would never dream about sending a laptop off without being wiped, because it's going to pop up on eBay. Someone's going to buy it and goes, "Oh, look, I've got so and so's laptop."
Yeah.
It can happen anyway because of the whole autopilot and Intune locking and things, but at least it's been wiped. Imagine if someone managed to pick up a router or a firewall that they were able to plug in, which hadn't been wiped, hadn't even really been factory reset, because the assumption was it had been done, and it VPN back home, and they had access to that customer's network. 10 times worse than a laptop, because you wouldn't even know they were connected for a while before they'd been able to get in and look at things. So I think the industry is going to go down that route. So I think 3 to 5 years, it will be mandatory. And if it isn't mandatory by compliance and certification, it's probably going to be mandatory by the end user pushing for it.
Yeah, it becomes a cultural thing, though, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It's what becomes the normal, the standard, isn't it, in terms of how ITADs operate?
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, kind of just to close up. So, if people wanted to take a look at Hydra, what are the next steps available to them? What's that process look like? Do they need to get hold of Novafox, or what do you recommend?
So they get in touch with us. They can reach us through the website. They can find our phone number. They can email us. They can we're at shows all the time now, so they can grab us at a show and have a chat with us. And then the first step is a trial. So we offer a 30-day trial of the product. You take a Hydra to your site, you play with it, you work, you process kit. And if you like it, which most people do, you keep it. And if you don't like it, then you send it back with no risk.
Can't say fairer than that, can you? So yeah, get in touch. Maybe we could do a demo, do a trial, and try it and see if it works for you. But at the end of the day, it should be a revenue earner, not a cost and an overhead. So hopefully, that's the way that things will move forward. Okay,
look,
that's great.
Most of our customers actually make money from the trial. So it pays for itself just from the trial.
So no risk then.
No risk at all.
Great stuff. All right, look, thanks again, Adam. It's been great to chat, and I look forward to talking to you on the next episode of The Den.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much.
Take care now. Cheerio.
Bye.
Bye.